Okay, welcome to the Girl Like a Mother podcast. I am your host, Jill. Thanks for joining me again this week. I have my new friend Cassidy on with me, and we're going to get talking about all things balancing in motherhood. Cassidy's been working to find the elusive unicorn that is balance in motherhood for the past 15 years. And just in the last few years, she's finally decided that lowering the bar without lowering the standard and saying good enough was better for her than striving for the perfect balance. And that sounds good to me. Because finding more personal flourishing and joy through doing less, she's actually helping other women give themselves permission to feel good about what matters most to them so that they can find their own personal flourishing too. So, welcome, Cassidy. I'm so excited to have you today, and I can't wait to just
Ooh,
chat.
yes, let's do. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So tell me how you have two kids, is that right? Oh,
But
you have four
four.
kids. Oh my God,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot. And so no wonder you have to balance everything.
Yeah. Well, if that's even possible, that's the other thing is like truly is that even possible in motherhood? I think that's where like picking your I mean this it's a trite phrase, but like picking your battles, I really do feel like that comes into play no matter if you have one kid or eight kids.
Hmm.
That balance is like that's why I think elusive is exactly right. I just don't think I'm not sure that it's even possible. So yes, whatever balance means with four kids. I mean, whether you've got two, four, eight, doesn't matter.
I feel like balance is a verb, right? Not a noun. Like it's not a place to get, it's a constant
Yes.
act.
Yes. That's a beautiful way to put it. And I do think that, at least for me, with my personality, I feel like I'm always trying to get somewhere. And so, but that somewhere always seems to be kind of moving. And so I think reframing it that way is like that it's an active thing rather than like, we're going to stand in the middle of the teeter totter. Well, the teeter totter is always moving. So I love that image that you say of like that it's a verb that we're balancing, not it's not an objective or somewhere to get.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you even start to try to figure this out? I mean, I'm picturing you as a mom, you've got the four kids, probably in the beginning after the first one or two is when you started like, oh crap, I really need to figure this out because this is getting crazy. Is that kind of the story? Like, how did it all start for you?
It probably start. I think probably a lot of it was we had three kids. I mean, easy pregnancies. I was running my own business, homeschooling during some of that journey too. So, but I was able to like I use the image of like plates spinning. So I had all the plates were spinning, and then a series of big T traumas happened one after the other. So I had three miscarriages in a row.
Mm.
We were moving and the sale of our house fell through. And then so we had two mortgages and we're trying to figure out what that looks like. And then we got the house built and then our area was devastated by a Category 5 hurricane. So we had like these huge big T trauma things happen. And then kind of the ground really did shake underneath me. And I feel like, well, now what? This life that I've kind of thought was all in a row, all perfect, I had all my little ducks in a row. All of a sudden, the ducks had swum off, and I didn't know where they had gone. And so that I think was where I started to feel like I was bumping up against hard that I'd never had before. And I think that was probably really the impetus of realizing like, okay, what I thought I could do in the past, I can't do now. So now I had the three kids, the miscarriages, all that stuff. And so then eventually a fourth did come along. And that felt like, while that was a lovely little bookend, life was not the same with the baby then as life had been before those kind of big things had happened. So I think that was the impetus, was realizing, wait, like this method of living, the way that I had all the plates spinning, I was treating all the spinning plates as if they were all china plates. And that experience of like all those traumas and that just crucible period of life let me go, wait. Not all these plates are china. Some are corian plates. Some are the plastic plates you give to your kids to eat on, and some are paper plates. And I think I started to go, hold on, not everything has the same value. I can let some of this drop, or I can let some of it, I can put it aside for now. So that was kind of what got me to re-examining how I view what is good enough. Everything before needed to be good enough, and like
Mm.
it needed to be beyond good enough. And that experience let me go, no, not everything has to be perfect. Like we can say good enough or even no, not now, on a lot more things than I think I realized I could, and I gave myself a little bit more permission and like curiosity around that. So that's where I started.
Right. And so is prioritizing and like choosing based on values sort of where you come from, or like how do we start? I'm just thinking about all the listeners, like how do we start to determine what is a paper plate? Like
Yeah.
how do we do even start?
What does matter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that is probably the biggest and maybe the hardest hurdle to get over,
Mm.
to be able to decide, yes, good enough is good enough. Because I think that is part of it, of going like, what matters? So some of it may be an internal conversation. For me, part of it was, I tend to live in my head. I am not always really great about being in touch with the way my body feels, my emotions. And so I think I actually, during that period of time, also started working with a parenting coach, because my one of the things that suffered through all this was my relationship with my oldest daughter.
Mm.
And she was the first one that kind of let me give myself permission to tap into how I actually felt. And that's another probably impetus for this changes that has happened is cluing into how I actually feel. How do I feel when I add something else to my plate? Before, I thought, well, this is just what good moms do, and without really thinking, okay, that may be good for them, but how do I feel when I enter into this, whatever this activity is? Like, do we, like, if it's adding another extra after school activity, or like homeschooling, that should be what's what we do in this period of our lives. It's what, and I realized, like, but how do I feel? What does that feel like to me in my body and my emotions? And so that was one of the things I think was helpful for me, and I think is something that I wonder, and I would be curious how you would say the same thing. Like, in the middle of life, when you're just going day in, day out, you have your schedule, you've got your planner, you know what you're supposed to do for the day. Sometimes I think all the activities mask our ability to clue into how we feel about the activities. And so I don't know if that would be true for everybody, but I think for me, that was a big piece of like stepping back and going, wait, how do I feel? Does this feel good in my body? Do I feel good in my emotions? And then how am I acting out of those emotions? That was another part of it, was realizing, yes, I was doing these things because, one, I thought I was supposed to. But then I realized that there was not a lot of joy in it. And I think the people in my circle, my most intimate people, my husband and my kids, could sense that, like, deep down, I was not a happy person. I was doing what I should. But I think, so for me, that was a big piece of letting myself have the permission to examine, how do I really feel about this? Is this really serving me? So that's kind of a nebulous thing, but that was one of the pieces with how I decided what mattered to me. Was Yes, probably family values a little bit, or like what our family values. But I think I was able to get more clear on what our family values by going, this doesn't feel good, so I
Mm.
don't want to do that. So let's see what changes I can make. Does that even make sense? I don't know how that would resonate with you too.
Yeah, totally. I think that once we start getting out of our heads and more into our bodies and our feelings to determine, like our intuition can talk to us and tell us, like, okay, yeah, this is important. This is not, this feels good. This does not. Because if we're just in our heads, like you mentioned, we're often in that should area. And it's
Mhm.
really difficult to get out of that and out of the comparison and the should and the, like cultural expectations that we all sort of assume as moms. We're like, okay, now I'm mom. Now I have this, and this to do. And without realizing, oh, we're actually all super different. Like
Yeah, yeah,
everything is super
totally.
different. Did
Yeah.
you experience, or do you experience like this mom guilt of maybe like having I don't know. I mean, it shows up for my clients in all kinds of ways, and I'm always interested because for me, I had a lot of guilt when I started my business because it was time I was choosing to take away from my kids.
Yeah.
Or like do you feel, I don't know, with the business and with trying to balance what's good for you in addition to what's good as mom, does that ever come up for you?
Oh, for sure. And I would say probably I struggle with that less now. And I think it's probably a few things. Like, one is I'm older. Like, I'm solidly 45. And so I can kind of say I DGAF about stuff a little bit more,
Yeah.
right? Just because of my age, and going like, I now know, like, that really doesn't matter. Me, as if you dropped me as a first time mom in with my personality now, it would look a lot different. So part of it is probably age, but part of it also is, like, again, having gone through all this and going, I am willing to say that mom guilt is not for me. Like, I can kind of eschew that a little bit more and go, like, I feel it, I can sense it, but go, wait, like that's not for me. I feel so much more solid in the direction that I'm going and the choices that I've made to do less for our family and to kind of put up some pretty big hedges around that. I feel much more comfortable with that. But I think that is such a common thing. I think a lot of people, a lot of moms, even in midlife, it doesn't matter age. I think a lot of us have a sense of like, gosh, I should be doing more. Like my friend, like, gosh, she's got such a beautiful relationship with her family. And she's, like I think about the example I use with my parenting coach. I have a good friend. She is ooey gooey about her kids in a way that is like so sweet. Like you can just tell she wants to eat them with a spoon. And I am just not built like that. But I felt like something must be wrong with me because this is what a good mom does. Like she wants to eat her kid with a spoon. And that's just not me. And once I felt like I have had the permission, and it was at that point, I needed the external permission given to me that that is not that. But now I think having that little crack in the door opened, now I feel like I can be like the Kool-Aid man and I can open that door myself and go, nope, that's not for me. I am a mama eagle. I am not a mama bear. Like I am not going to be the snuggly protect, like that's just not me, but I am doing a great job as a mom in my mother eagle mode. Like that's kind of the persona that I have, not the mama bear of the rough and tumble or the snuggly or the eat your kid with a spoon. That's just not me. But I feel so much more solid now as a midlife person, as someone who was initially given the verbal permission by someone who I viewed as trustworthy. And now that kind of that ball, lots of metaphors, but that ball started rolling, then I was like, oh, it's picking up steam. And I feel much more able to be solidly myself without carrying a lot of mom guilt. But I do think it's important. One thing that was helpful was like having the idea of like blinders on a horse, and as they're moving, like they can see where they're going and they can feel where they're supposed to go from the people behind, from the guy with the reins, but they're just going ahead. And I think that image has been really helpful to me because I can sense when I start to feel like, oh wait a minute, everybody, maybe this is something we should do, and then I go, nope, blinders on. That doesn't fit with what is important to me, what matters to me, what matters to my husband and our kids.
I love that. So it sounds like you've gotten good at putting the boundaries in place of, nope, don't need this. I see that. That's interesting. I'm going to move right along. And are there any other boundaries that you've got set up in your life that are helpful for you to like manage it all and get through, or that help your kids? Because I know that you probably have um, you have a different day than kids who go to school, right? If everyone's home, you're in the same
They're
environment all day,
they're
like,
in they're in school now, but I will say the one reason why that they are in school is because I realized that I was pulled thinner than taffy.
yeah.
I sensed myself not being. I knew what I could feel like, and I was not feeling that. And I knew that I was acting out of that place of I was teaching and interacting with them at a place of thinness. And so that actually was another one with that I could sense this was just not right. And so we decided to put them in school, and it's been a huge blessing because I feel like I've returned to me more, and I've gotten the ability to kind of spread out, arms akimbo, head held high, chest thrown up, because I go, oh, there we go, there's me again. But in terms, like I was thinking about this just recently, that one of the boundaries that we've kind of put in for our family that works, and it doesn't work for everybody. I realize like we tend to live a pretty I was going to say restrictive, but I mean a closed life that work because it works for us. So one of the things that we have said since the kids were little is we're going to do one activity. We're not going to have a lot of activities, and we've kind of thankfully fallen into our place and made a concerted effort to say, like for a while, the kids, all four of them, were all in jujitsu at the same time at the same place. And if we'd had to run around, I don't know that we would have done it. And like right now, the kids are all in an after school. They're all doing sports after school, but it's at their school all at the same time. So for us, that works out beautifully because the boundary is everybody does one thing all together, or we just don't. And I love the fact that I know that I feel better doing that. But what's been really neat is that my son, who is now 10, said he's able to verbalize, I don't like it when we're going, like on Wednesdays, it used to be we go from there to jujitsu and then right to church and then come home. And he can sense that sense of like pulled in, and I can tell when he is feeling like that. And now he's old enough to be able to verbalize it. So I love the feedback that I've gotten on the boundary that I've set to say, I can't do this for my own psyche, has been really helpful for him too. So I think that's just a little confirmation that at least for right now, in this season of our lives, the age I am, the age they are, this is the boundary that works beautifully for us. Wouldn't work for everybody, but it's what we've set in place for us.
Mhm. I feel like I say this every single episode, but like this work that we're doing on ourselves with our boundaries, with our values, with our self-care, it impacts our kids. And that is the gift, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yes, we're
Yes.
doing it for us, but being able to see the ripple effect is like, that's
Oh,
what it's all about.
absolutely. Oh yeah. I use that image a lot in my own as I'm talking, as I'm encouraging other moms that like the work that to do this is hard. And it's not easy to say, no, we can't go hither and yon, or we're like to put up those boundaries is not necessarily easy. It is good and it is right, but it is not easy. But I think it's really important to, in the middle of it for me, to reinforce to my own self that this hard work is worth it. It's getting me somewhere beautiful. The ripple effects for my own self have been transformative, but I'm able to see in my kids that hard work is so worth it because they are able to feel more broad, more expansive, more well rested. I mean, just the practical things of being more well rested. They've got more time to eat a good breakfast or lunch or dinner with their family. So I love that. I'm so glad that you honed in on that because I think that's so important that it putting in the work to do all of these things, all of the boundaries and all the work and internal work is so important for ourselves, yes. But I think sometimes moms even have a hard time allowing themselves to do that work because, like you said, like starting a business feels like it takes time away from things. So sometimes even doing this work feels like I'm taking time away, like going to see a therapist, talking to someone, working with a coach like you. I think that can feel hard, but realizing that like this little seed you're planting germinates into a huge thing that really can nourish not just you but your whole family. It's so worthwhile.
Yeah, it is. And that sort of leads me into wondering if you can share how you help women. Like, what does the work that you do look like in supporting women in this sort of journey?
Yeah, I think right now it's simple. It's not. I'm working to kind of expand what I'm doing, but right now I think having a voice that might seem contrary in the area that I live in with the women that I talk to, I probably provide a little bit of just a different narrative. So I love in my Instagram, in my newsletters that I like to be able to say like this is how I'm doing it. This is how it's working out. To be able to say good enough is really good enough, and having that just extra voice, it's been really neat to get DMs from people to say I thought about you because I like we had the easy dinner instead of like I don't like to cook and so we did something else and it was very small but it was perfect. So getting those kind of messages is so beautiful. I have a free training that I've made available that's got a really like a quick, not easy but simple 6 little steps of like how to figure out what matters and how to and like problem solving with the end in mind of good enough as being the end. And then I'm working on some other things that I hope to be able to just help other, like I said, help other women to be able to find that same expansiveness that I feel now as a huge difference from, pre all those little incidents, all those traumas. Like that's been lovely for me to feel that. And so to be able to do that for other women has been, I just feel like it's such a gift that I get to do.
Yeah, I think that is the magical thing. That's sort of what I look for too. And like my next level up, I'm looking for someone who's like, okay, figured this thing out. I've got it. Let me help
Mhm.
you with this thing. And then when I get to my next level, I'm like,
Yeah.
who figured this next thing out? Right. And so it's just being
Yeah.
able to help the people who were basically you several years ago, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh, I see you. I know that pain. I get
Yes.
it. And here are some things that can help. I'll make sure that the that freebie is in the show notes so that the listeners who are like resonating with it and feel like that is something that they need a little bit of help with can easily
Mhm.
access it. But if someone's listening and wants to just connect with you on your Instagram, which is fantastic follow, by the way, you guys definitely should. How can they find you and learn more from you?
Instagram is my little cozy home. I love it. I feel like I've got a fun little group of people that follow that I get to talk with. So Instagram is probably the best place. But my newsletter is another spot. My DMs, I like text, whatever. I just love being able to interact with people because it's life giving to me to feel like I'm able to, like you said, to say like you're like just a half step behind me. I'm not perfect. I've not mastered this. This is the as you said, it's a progress to it's a process, not an end in mind. And so that those are the best places to find me. But more is coming, but that's like DMs and emails and newsletters. All the things are always open. I love it.
Well, I'm so grateful for your time today. It was a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more and chat with you about all of the things. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks for this conversation. Like I said, I love the image that you've left me with is that idea of like the balancing instead of finding balance. So that's gonna be ruminating in my head. So thanks for that little
Yeah, yeah,
nugget
of
that you left me with.
course. Of course. Before we say goodbye, is there anything else that feels important to share that we didn't get to touch on to share with the audience?
I think that the thing that I would say is like to allow yourself to be curious and to give yourself permission to kind of think that it's okay to do things differently, even than you did yesterday, or even to people before you. I think that was like I said, kind of a catalyst of being open to changing. So just being curious about that, I think, is a great little step.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.